Single dad janitor took in an Amnesiac CEO years later. She rewrote all their lives forever. Daddy, is that a ghost? Nathan Cole slammed the brakes tires, skidding across the slick asphalt as headlights sliced through the night fog. The figure stood frozen in the road, a woman barefoot, bloodied and pale as bone. Her white suit soaked through, clinging to her like a forgotten statue left in a storm. Emily leaned forward from the back seat, eyes wide beneath her knitted owl hat. She's not moving. Nathan threw the car into Parkhart, hammering in his throat. Stay inside, he ordered, voice tighter than he wanted. Lock the doors. He stepped out into the rain. It was the kind of downpour that could wash the past off a man's back or drown it deeper. The woman didn't flinch as he approached. Her lips moved but made no sound. Only her eyes seemed alive, wide, searching, terrified, and childlike. You okay? Miss Nathan asked cautiously, scanning her for injuries. Her lips trembled. Mommy Nathan blinked. What? The woman swayed on her feet, then collapsed forward. He caught her just before her head hit the pavement. 15 minutes later, the living room of Nathan's modest farmhouse smelled like rain antiseptic and fresh chamomile tea. The woman sat wrapped in an old flannel blanket, staring at Emily, who stared right back at her with the raw curiosity only children possessed. She called you Mommy, Emily said matter-of-factly. The woman said nothing. Her fingers clutched the blanket tightly, knuckles pale. She doesn't remember her name, Nathan said gently, or where she's from. EMT said she needs rest and a warm place to stay until she's cleared. Emily tilted her head. Can we keep her? Nathan gave a weary half-smile. She's not a puppy. Em. The woman's eyes shifted between the two of them. Emily, she whispered. Emily's mouth dropped open. You know my name. You told her earlier, sweetheart, Nathan reminded her. She's just repeating it. But inside, something tugged at him. The way the woman looked at his daughter, it wasn't random. It was warm, protective, familiar. What's your name? Emily asked, scooting closer. Do you remember anything? The woman blinked slowly. Hope? Nathan raised a brow. Hope? She nodded as if testing the word for the first time. Hope, she repeated firmer this time. Nathan exhaled. All right, Hope it is. Later that night, after Emily fell asleep, curled beside Hope on the couch, Nathan stood on the porch. Rain finally reduced to a whisper. He called the sheriff's office again. No missing persons report filed, no ID, no clues. He looked back. Inside, a woman with no memory, a child who had already claimed her, and a man who had no business letting either of them stay, but couldn't imagine turning them away. The next morning, Nathan awoke to a smell that didn't belong. Burnt toast. He rushed into the kitchen and froze. Hope was there, wearing one of his flannel shirts like a dress hair tied messily with a shoelace, standing barefoot in front of the toaster. She turned around proudly, holding a plate of charcoal-colored bread. I made breakfast. He blinked. That's impressive. She grinned like a 5-year-old who had just drawn her first stick figure. You're not supposed to use appliances alone, Nathan said, trying not to smile. But I wanted to help. Families make breakfast together. Her eyes flicked toward Emily, who was coloring at the table with the focus of a monk. Right, Emily piped up. She said, Moms make breakfast. Hope beamed. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck. Listen, Hope, we need to talk. She tilted her head. You can't just stay here. There are rules, legal stuff. You don't have ID in the police. But I feel safe here, she interrupted. Her voice cracked on the word safe. That silenced him. Emily looked up. Daddy, what if she's supposed to be here? What do you mean? Maybe she's not lost. Maybe we were supposed to find her. Nathan stared at his daughter. Kids didn't overthink. They just knew. He turned to Hope. Can you remember anything else? Family work where you were going. She shook her head. Just rain and falling. Then lights. Your lights. And the word mommy. Hope looked at Emily, then at him. I don't know why. It just came out. Nathan exhaled, walked to the table, and pulled out a chair. You're safe here, he said finally. But just for a few days until we figure this out, Hope smiled. I'll try not to burn anything else. Try very hard, he muttered. That night, Hope helped. Emily folded laundry badly. She misfolded towels, buttoned shirts inside out, and managed to turn a fitted sheet into a toga. Emily laughed so hard she hiccuped. You're not a very good mom. Emily giggled. Hope made a face. Well, I'm new at it. You'll get better, Emily said. Seriously. Daddy did. Hope glanced at Nathan, who was watching quietly from the kitchen. That night, as he tucked Emily in, she whispered, Daddy, can Hope stay forever? He hesitated. We'll see, sweetheart. But when he turned to leave, Emily said one more thing that rooted him to the floor. She doesn't feel like a stranger. She feels like someone we forgot we were waiting for. Nathan stood in the doorway long after Emily drifted off. Outside, the sky was finally clear. But inside, something was beginning. Something that had no name, yet. You married Nathan, choked on his coffee. Excuse me. Hope leaned across the kitchen table, eyes wide with innocent curiosity. You said I was your wife. So am I? The spoon slipped from his hand and clattered against the counter. Across the room, Emily sat on the floor, humming as she dressed her stuffed rabbit in one of Hope's borrowed socks. Nathan met Hope's gaze, then dropped his voice low. That was just something I said to keep you from being taken to a facility. She blinked. A facility? A place for people who don't remember who they are? Oh. She paused, thoughtful, like a lost, and found, but for people. He gave a weak chuckle. Yeah, something like that. Hope tilted her head. So we're not really married? No, he said a little too quickly. Then why does it feel like we are? Nathan had no answer for that. Later that day, Nathan drove into town for groceries, leaving Emily and Hope under the watchful eye of Mrs. Tanner, their elderly neighbor, who baked pies like she held the recipe for heaven. The grocery store smelled of old wood citrus cleaner and memories he didn't want. He hadn't been here with a woman in years, not since Cole came a voice from behind. Sheriff Danner, round-faced, kinded, and far too observant, clapped him on the back. Heard you picked up a stray the other night. Nathan kept his voice neutral. She was in the middle of the road, bleeding and confused. What would you have done? Exactly that. The sheriff leaned in. But you might want to be careful. Folks start talking when a man brings home a mystery woman with no name. She's harmless, Nathan said. That's what they said about Annie Wilkes, the sheriff teased. Nathan raised a brow. You just compare hope to misery, Sheriff. Danner laughed. I'm saying this town doesn't forget much, even when others do. Nathan's smile faded. When he returned, the house smelled of cinnamon and burnt oatmeal. Hope stood, proudly in the kitchen wearing an apron that read, Kiss the cook backward. I tried pancakes, she said, beaming. Nathan surveyed the crime scene of batter on the ceiling and a pan that looked like it had fought a war and lost. Not bad, he said, carefully. How many casualties? 3 eggs, a wooden spoon, and possibly the toaster. He laughed despite himself. Noted. Emily dashed over and handed him a paper with crayon scribbles. It was a drawing of him, Emily, and Hope, standing under a giant yellow sun. See? I made us a family portrait. Hope knelt beside her. Can I hang it in the hallway? Emily nodded right next to the photo of Mommy. Nathan's breath caught. Hope turned slowly. Your mommy? My real one, Emily said, unbothered. She died when I was 3. I don't remember much. just that she smelled like lavender and sang in the mornings. Nathan swallowed hard. Hope glanced at him, then down at Emily. "I'm not trying to replace her," Hope said gently. "You're not," Emily replied. "You're something else. Maybe something I didn't know I needed." Hope blinked, stunned. Sometimes children said things that made grown men fall apart. That evening, the three of them sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the cornfield, smearing the sky in shades of gold and pink. Hope swung her legs slowly. "This place, it's quiet." "Too quiet?" Nathan asked. "No," she said softly. "It's the kind of quiet that feels like someone finally stopped shouting in my head." He looked over. She wasn't smiling. She was just still. "Do you think she asked people can become someone new if they forget who they were?" Nathan took a long sip of his coffee before answering. "I think the truest version of a person shows up when they've got nothing to hide behind." Hope nodded slowly. "Then maybe I like this version." A beat passed. "You ever thought about what your name was?" Nathan asked. She looked up at the stars. "Names are just sounds, right? Maybe I used to be someone cold, important, scared." She looked at him. "But I feel warm here and brave." "Hope suits you," he said quietly. She smiled. "It's funny. I don't remember who I was, but I remember how I want to feel." Later that night, as Nathan stood brushing his teeth, he caught sight of a reflection in the hallway mirror, Hope, watching silently. She looked at herself in the frame, touching her face like a stranger. "I don't know who she is," she whispered. "But she looks tired." Nathan set down his toothbrush. "She looks like someone who's surviving." Hope turned. "You don't think I'm crazy, do you?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, just a little lost, and maybe we all are." Hope stepped closer to the hallway lamp, casting a soft glow between them. "I don't know how long I'm supposed to stay," she said, voice barely audible. "But every day I'm here. I remember more about the kind of life I want." "And what kind is that?" Nathan asked. She looked toward Emily's room. "One with laughter and pancakes and a little girl who calls me Mommy even if I don't deserve it." He looked at her. This stranger woman child with no past, but a growing presence in his life. "You don't have to earn love," Nathan said softly. "Sometimes being there is enough." Hope blinked hard. "Thank you." He nodded. "Good night, Hope." As she turned to go, she whispered, "Good night, husband." Nathan stood, frozen, toothbrush in hand, heart pounding like he hadn't heard that word in years, because he hadn't. And it had never sounded so dangerous or so right. "Do moms tuck their kids in with songs?" Hope's question came softly, her voice wrapped in the golden hush of evening. Nathan looked up from the kitchen sink, hands wet, sleeves rolled. Emily was already in bed, light off, except for the little rocket-shaped night lamp beside her pillow. Outside, cicadas hummed like background music from a slower, softer world. Sometimes he said, "Mine used to hew me clean. Was she a good mom?" He paused. "She had hard days, but I always knew she loved me, even when she didn't say it out loud." Hope nodded, then disappeared into Emily's room. From the doorway, Nathan watched as she sat gently at the edge of the bed. Emily stirred, then smiled sleepily. "I didn't know you were a singer," Emily mumbled. "I'm not," Hope whispered. "But maybe you can help me be." She began to hum, and unsure at first, then steadier. A lullaby with no words, only warmth. Her hand brushed through Emily's hair like she'd done it 1,000 times. Nathan's throat tightened. She didn't just play mother, she was mothering, and somehow it was working. The next morning, Nathan came down to a mess of glitter glue construction paper and mismatched socks scattered across the living room. Hope stood at the counter wearing yellow dish gloves 2 sizes too big, holding up a plate like it was a trophy. "Ta-da, no burns." Nathan examined the perfectly edible eggs. "Miracle on Maple Lane." She grinned. progress. Emily dashed in holding a folded piece of paper. Hope made our family logo. Hope beamed as Emily unfolded the crayon-covered sheet. 3 stick figures, 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small, standing beneath a crooked little house. Above it, the words home isn't a place. It's a promise. Nathan stared at the drawing, unable to speak. Hope gently said, "That's what it feels like, doesn't it? Like we promised each other something even if we don't know the words yet." Later that week, something changed. It started with a call from Principal Hernandez at the elementary school. "We've had an opening in our after-school mentoring program," she said. "We need someone who's patient, good with kids, and not afraid of cleaning glue off the ceiling." Nathan almost laughed. "You sure you called the right guy?" She chuckled. "Emily talks about you like you're the town's unsung hero. I figured I'd find out if the legend matches the mop." That afternoon, Nathan sat at a little round table with 3 second graders all trying to build a tower using popsicle sticks, peanut butter, and 0 structural integrity. From the doorway, Hope peeked in. She had walked Emily to school and stayed to watch. No memory, no resume. But instinctively, she found the lonely kid in the corner and started helping him build a bridge instead of a tower. "No one ever builds bridges," the boy said. "They all want castles." Hope smiled. "Castles look great, but bridges get people across." Nathan heard it from across the room and had to stop himself from applauding. Later, walking home together under the soft blush of evening light, he asked, "Where'd you learn that?" She shrugged. "Maybe I was a poet or a therapist or just someone who once needed a bridge, too." He looked at her, really looked at the woman, without a past, but somehow filled with wisdom that only pain could teach. "You're good at this," he said. "At what belonging?" She stopped walking. "That's the thing, Nathan. I don't feel like I'm pretending anymore. I wake up here and it doesn't feel borrowed." That night, Emily brought out a shoebox. "I want to show you something," she told Hope. Inside were old photos, baby pictures, drawings, and a small cloth doll with a button eye missing. "This was Mommy's," Emily said softly. "She made it for me." Hope held the doll carefully. "She must have loved you very much." "She did," Emily whispered. "But love doesn't mean you get to stay." The room fell quiet. "Emily," continued her voice steady, "but I think you're brave because you're staying, even though you don't know who you are." Hope's eyes welled up. "That's the kindest thing anyone's ever said to me." Nathan stepped in, watching the exchange from the shadows of the hallway. "That sentence, love, doesn't mean you get to stay," hit harder than he expected. Maybe because for so long he didn't stay. Not really. After his wife died, he shut down, functioned, cleaned, provided. But he hadn't stayed, not emotionally. Hope had walked into their lives without permission, without a name. And yet, she stayed fully, fiercely. The next morning, Nathan found Hope on the porch steps, sipping tea, barefoot in the dew. She didn't look broken. She looked like someone, trying to grow roots. "You slept out here?" he asked. "I couldn't sleep. Too many dreams trying to crawl out." He sat beside her. "Want to talk about them?" She shook her head. "They don't make sense. Faces with no names, rooms with too many mirrors. But one thing is clear." "What?" "I wasn't happy. Whoever I was expensive, cold, and very, very alone." Nathan said nothing for a while. Then quietly, "You don't have to go back to that. Not if you don't want to." She looked at him. "I don't know if I'm ready to be someone new." She said, "You already are." He said, "You just haven't noticed." Hope turned toward him, eyes brimming. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because you make my daughter smile in ways I haven't seen in years," he said. "Because you've given this quiet house a voice again, and because maybe I need this too." She stared at him, stunned, then whispered, You ever think we met for a reason? He looked up at the sunrise spilling gold across the porch. Every day, he said, and for the first time she smiled. Not like someone trying to fit in, but like someone who finally believed she did. Hope, why did you flinch just now? Nathan's voice was soft but steady, his eyes searching hers under the kitchen's warm pendant light. Hope stood frozen, hand still hovering near the cupboard handle. A plate had slipped and crashed to the floor a moment ago. The sound hadn't been loud, but something about it had shaken her. She lowered her hand slowly, fingers trembling. I don't know, she whispered. Nathan bent to pick up the shards, careful not to cut himself. It's okay. Just a plate. She nodded, but her body told a different story, tense, distant, like her soul had retreated somewhere far away. Emily, watching, from the table, frowned. She looked scared. Daddy, like not of the plate, like something else. Hope forced a smile. Sometimes our bodies remember things our minds forget. Emily tilted her head. Like ghosts, Hope's voice was almost a whisper. Something like that. That evening, the wind carried the scent of rain, the kind that stirred emotions without falling. Nathan found Hope sitting on the back porch, swing arms wrapped around herself. I didn't mean to scare Emily, she said, not turning. You didn't. She's worried. That's different. Hope stared out into the distance. Sometimes I get flashes, feelings, like a shadow passing through a locked room. I don't see the memory, but I feel what it left behind. Nathan sat beside her. Tell me. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. When that plate shattered, I felt small, like someone was towering over me, angry. But I can't see a face. Nathan's jaw clenched. Maybe whoever you were running from wasn't just inside you? I don't even know if I was running. Her voice cracked. But what if I wasn't a good person, Nathan? He turned to her, firm but gentle. Hope good people can be lost, damaged, tired. But the way you love Emily, the way you show up every day with no past to lean on, that's the kind of good you don't fake. She looked down. But what if I hurt someone before? What if I had everything and still became bitter? Then it makes what you're doing now even more powerful? She blinked at him. Because it means you chose differently this time. A few days later, Hope walked Emily to school. The sidewalk shimmered with golden leaves, and Hope had woven one into Emily's ponytail like a crown. Outside the gates, another mom approached. She was tall, polished, and her eyes flicked over Hope's flannel like she didn't quite belong. I haven't seen you before, the woman said. Hope smiled politely. We're new. I'm staying with Emily's family. Oh, I thought Nathan Cole was a widower-rower. There was an edge to her tone. Hope's smile didn't falter. He is. But you live with him. Hope tilted her head. I do. The woman blinked clearly, not expecting the calm honesty. Right. Well, welcome, I guess. Hope watched her walk away, then turned to Emily, who had been listening closely. You didn't tell her you were my mom, Emily said quietly. Hope knelt down. Because I'm not. Not really. Not yet. Emily frowned. But you feel like it. Isn't that what matters? Hope's heart twisted. She took Emily's small hands. Sweetheart love is real, but names, they carry weight. I want to earn the right to be yours, not just wear the title. Emily looked up at her for a long time, then said, Then hurry. That night, Nathan came home from the mentoring program to find Hope in the attic. She was dust-covered and wide-eyed, holding a box labeled, Grace, my wife's, he said quietly. I shouldn't have opened it, she said quickly, but he shook his head. No, it's time. He crossed the creaky floor, knelt beside her, and opened the lid. Inside were photographs, letters, and a faded hospital bracelet. a baby onesie. A photo of a blonde woman holding an infant glowing with joy. Grace. She was beautiful, Hope whispered. She was sunlight, Nathan said, and fire. She didn't wait for life to ask permission. She stormed in. Hope studied the photo. Were you scared to love again? Nathan hesitated, then nodded. I didn't think I could until the night you walked into. That road and everything I'd buried woke up. Hope stared at him, her breath caught. I don't know what this is yet, he said, but it's not pretend anymore. She looked down. I'm scared too. He reached out, brushed her knuckles gently. Let's be scared together then. A few nights later, Hope dreamt again. This time, the dream had shape. She was in a ballroom, mirrors everywhere. Her reflection twisted but didn't follow her movements. She wore diamonds. People bowed. Then came the voice. You think you can run from me from who you are? A man's voice, cold, familiar. She turned in the dream and saw nothing. When she woke, her pillow was wet with tears. At breakfast, Emily handed her a new drawing. It was Hope, but with a cape. You're my superhero now, she said proudly. Because you're brave, even when you're scared. Hope swallowed the lump in her throat. You give me my courage, you know that. Nathan looked on quiet, watchful. And as Hope pulled Emily into her arms, a single thought bloomed in her chest. Whatever I was before, this is the version I want to be, even if it meant the past would come looking. She was finally ready to answer. The rain came without warning. Sharp silver needles falling sideways, tapping on windows like a restless past, begging to be let in. Nathan stood by the front door, watching it sweep across the fields in sheets. Hope was still outside, having gone for a walk just minutes before the sky cracked open. He grabbed his coat and was halfway out the door when he saw her standing barefoot in the rain, not moving, soaked through, arms limp at her sides, face pale, eyes hollow. Hope, he shouted, sprinting across the yard. Hope, what are you doing? She didn't respond. When he reached her, her lips moved silently before sound returned. He was here. Nathan froze. Who? Hope blinked like surfacing from underwater. I don't know. But I knew him. I felt it. He was standing by the fence, dark coat, tall, just watching. Nathan looked around. Nothing but rain and wind and shadows in motion. There's no one there, Hope. Her voice trembled. I felt it. He put his coat around her shoulders, guiding her gently back inside. But as they stepped through the door, Hope whispered something that stopped him cold. I think his name was Daniel. The living room fire crackled low. Hope sat wrapped in blankets. Steam, rising from the untouched mug in her hands. Nathan crouched beside her. Do you remember anything else? She shook her head, just his voice, low, calm, like poison in velvet. Nathan's hands curled into fists. Hope looked up. What if he's the one I was running from? Then you're not alone anymore, he said firmly. And you're not that woman anymore either. But what if he wants her back? Nathan stared into the fire. Then he's too late because she's gone. You're this woman now, and she's worth protecting. Later that night, Hope went into Emily's room. The little girl was fast asleep, one arm curled around the stuffed rabbit with the missing ear. Hope sat beside her, watching the slow rhythm of her breath. I don't know who I was before, she whispered, but I know who I want to be now. And it's the woman this little girl thinks I am. She traced a gentle hand across Emily's hair. I don't need memories to know what love feels like. I feel it every time you call me Mommy, without flinching. Behind her, Nathan stood in the doorway, silent. The next morning, Nathan returned from the hardware store with extra locks and motion sensor lights. Hope raised an eyebrow, preparing for a siege. He gave a half shrug. Can't fight ghosts, but I can keep out whatever wears their face." She smiled faintly. "You really think I'm in danger? I think if someone out there wants you back, it's not because they love you, it's because they lost control of you." Hope stared out the window. Control? That word makes my stomach twist. He stepped closer. "You don't belong to anyone, not anymore." She looked up at him. "Then who do I belong to now?" Nathan didn't hesitate. "To yourself, and maybe to us if you want." Hope's eyes brimmed. "I do." That afternoon, while organizing Emily's artwork in the attic, Hope stumbled on a locked trunk. Something about it made her fingertips tingle. She brought it down and showed it to Nathan. "That was Grace's," he said. "I never opened it after." She passed. They sat on the floor. He found the old brass key taped inside the photo album cover. The lock clicked. Inside were keepsakes, love letters, receipts from diners, one of Grace's sketchbooks, and then, tucked beneath a scarf, an envelope, addressed to whoever she becomes. Hope froze. I think this is for me." Nathan handed it to her silently. Hope opened it slowly. Inside was a single piece of paper, aged and soft at the edges. "You're reading this because life didn't go how anyone planned. If you're here, if you've stayed, then maybe that's enough. Maybe being lost is just the first step in choosing to be found. You're not filling my place. You're writing a new one, and that's beautiful." Grace Hope pressed the letter to her chest, eyes closing. "She saw me before I existed." Nathan nodded. She had a way of doing that. That night, Hope sat with Emily on the porch swing, both of them wrapped in a single fleece blanket. The moon was bold, unafraid. So was the air between them. "Do you think people are like books?" Emily asked suddenly. Hope smiled. "What do you mean? Like if your first chapter is scary or bad, can your ending still be happy?" Hope looked out at the stars. "I think the ending depends on who you let hold the pen." Emily thought for a moment. "Then I want you to write mine." Hope pulled her close. "Then we'll write it together." Before bed, Hope found Nathan in the kitchen drawing dishes. "I want to remember," she said, "even if it hurts, even if it ruins everything." He turned. "Why?" "Because I want to know what I survived." Nathan stepped forward. "Then whatever comes, we face it together. Me, you, and Emily." Hope nodded, her voice steady. "Then I'm not afraid." She reached for his hand. And in that quiet moment, rain still whispering against the windows, Nathan realized she wasn't a mystery anymore. She was home. It began with a knock. Not loud, not rushed, just deliberate, like someone who already knew they'd be let in. Nathan opened the door and felt the air shift. A man stood there mid-40s in an impeccably tailored coat shoes that hadn't touched mud in years, and a gaze like steel wrapped in silk. "Nathan Cole," the man asked, voice smooth but cold. "That's me." The man extended a business card. "Daniel Arledge, Executive Counsel, Arledge Holdings." Nathan didn't take it. "What do you want?" The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "A conversation, preferably somewhere private." Before Nathan could respond, a soft voice echoed from behind. "I know that name." Daniel looked past him and his smile widened. "There you are." Hope stood in the hallway, pale, motionless. Emily peeked, out from behind her, sensing something wrong. Hope whispered, barely audible, "I remember you." Daniel stepped forward like he was approaching a lost heirloom. "I've been searching for you for weeks." Nathan moved instinctively, stepping between them. "She's not property." Daniel raised both hands. "Of course not. But she is my fiancée." The silence that followed could have cracked bone. Hope's breath hitched. "That's not possible." Daniel smiled tightly. "You disappeared the night before our engagement gala." Walked out of a Manhattan penthouse wearing a dress worth 10 grand and no shoes. Hope shook her head slowly. I don't remember that. I don't remember you. He stepped closer. Then let me remind you. You're Malene Hart, CFO of Arledge Holdings, my company, my partner. We were building an empire together until you threw it away. Hope clutched the doorframe for balance. No, I was running. I felt it in my bones. Nathan turned to her gently. You don't have to talk to him if you don't want to. Daniel narrowed, his eyes. She does, and legally she's mine to protect. Her medical power of attorney lists me as next of kin. Hope backed up. I didn't choose you. I escaped you. Daniel's voice grew sharp. You had an episode. You weren't thinking clearly. That's why I'm here to bring you home. Hope's voice dropped to a whisper. But this is home. Nathan shut the door. He turned to Hope, who was shaking. You okay? He asked. She nodded slowly, but her voice betrayed her. I'm Malene. That's my real name. It feels like glass in my throat, saying it, but it's true. Nathan crouched to meet her eyes. Your name doesn't change the woman I know. She looked away. But it changes everything else. No, he said. It only changes where the story started, not where it ends. That night, after putting Emily to bed, Hope sat on the porch with a worn journal in her lap. Graces. I need to know what kind of person I was, she said, not from him, from the silence, from the cracks. She turned a page and traced the ink. I remember the way his voice made my stomach knot. I remember never laughing. I remember being tired. All the time. Nathan listened silent and steady. Do you know what's worse than being lost? She asked, eyes shimmering. He shook his head, being found by the wrong person. The next morning, Daniel returned with lawyers. Hope watched them from the window. He's not going to stop. Nathan exhaled slowly. Then we don't either. She looked at him. But I have no papers. No proof of who I want to be, only proof of what I was. He stepped closer. Hope the law may see you as Malene Hart, but I see you and Emily sees you. That's real. Tears slid down her cheeks. What if I have to go back? What if I lose this? Nathan took her hands. Then you fight and I'll be right beside you. She nodded, breathing deeply. Then let's not run anymore. They met Daniel at the town, attorney's office, a humble brick building with ivy-covered walls, a place built on truth more than show. Inside, Daniel sat with his lawyers. Hope arrived with Nathan holding his hand like a lifeline. Daniel stood. You've made this unnecessarily complicated. Hope looked him in the eye. No, I just made a choice. You don't get to choose amnesia, Daniel said coldly. I didn't choose to forget, but I chose who I became afterward, and that woman doesn't belong to you. One of Daniel's lawyers leaned forward. Ms. Hart, you are still legally bound by corporate and personal contracts, Hope interrupted. Am I also bound to be unhappy? To be afraid, Daniel sneered. You're not thinking clearly. No, Hope said, voice firm. For the first time in my life, I am. She stood tall. This isn't about memory. It's about freedom, and I choose not to go back. You can keep the penthouse, keep the company, but you don't get to keep me. On the way home, Nathan glanced at her. You were incredible. Hope stared out the window, trembling. I've never felt more terrified. But also brave, he added. She smiled faintly. Both can exist. I learned that here. Nathan took her hand, squeezing it gently. You're not Malene anymore. Not to us. Not to her. He nodded toward the back seat where Emily slept, hugging her rabbit. Hope exhaled, a new name forming in her heart. Not forced, not remembered, but chosen. And with it the quiet conviction that the past had lost its grip because she no longer needed to run from it. She had learned how to stand. "Do you think I'm still her?" Hope asked softly, her gaze fixed on her reflection in the bedroom mirror. Nathan looked up from folding laundry. "Who?" "Meline Hart," she whispered, like the name itself was too heavy to say aloud. That woman with the cold heels and diamond watch. The woman who needed power to feel like she mattered. He stood, walked over, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're not who you were. You're who you chose to become after everything broke." Hope met his eyes. "But what if I built my whole life on something rotten? What if I was part of what broke me?" Nathan didn't flinch. "Then you're doing the bravest thing a person can do. You stopped the cycle. You chose light." Hope's voice cracked. "Sometimes the hardest fight isn't leaving. It's staying when everything in you wants to disappear again." He reached for her hand. "Then let me be the reason you stay. Not to fix you, just to walk beside you." The next day, Hope stood at the community center with a blank clipboard and shaking hands. Nathan had encouraged her to volunteer, not as therapy, but as a bridge back into the world. The director, an older woman named Miss Irene, eyed her kindly. "You sure you want to start with the Women's Trauma Support Group?" Hope nodded. "I don't have a background, but I have empathy." Miss Irene smiled. "Then you've got the most important thing." Hope stepped into the room, a half circle of women, one empty chair. She took it. A long pause, then a voice from the corner. "You look like someone who's never had a bad day." Hope blinked. "Then I must have gotten really good at pretending." The women chuckled lightly, ice broken. She looked around. "I forgot who I was. Literally. One day I was in a city I didn't know in clothes I didn't choose, terrified of my own reflection. And somehow I ended up in a house where a little girl called me Mommy before I even knew how to be human again." Another pause, then another voice. "Sounds like a story worth surviving for." That night, Emily sat at the kitchen table, crayons scattered everywhere. She held up a drawing, 3 figures hand in hand. Nathan Hope herself. A sun overhead with a smiley face. "This is our family," she said proudly. "Not perfect, but real." Hope stared at the picture. "Why did you draw me with a cape?" "Because you saved us." Hope blinked. "I think you saved me." Emily shrugged. "Maybe we saved each other." Later, Hope sat on the porch with Nathan warm mugs in hand. Autumn wind stirred the trees and the stars blinked like secrets. "I spoke to women today who remembered too much," Hope said. "And I realized forgetting didn't make me lucky. It just gave me the choice to become someone different." Nathan sipped his tea. "You know what amazes me?" She looked at him. "You had nothing, no name, no anchor, but somehow you still knew how to love my daughter like she was your own." Hope swallowed. "Maybe that was the part of me that never got buried." He nodded. "Then that's the part I believe in." She looked away, voice trembling. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't walked into that road?" Nathan answered, without hesitation. "Then my world would still be missing its missing piece." A week later, Hope received a letter in the mail, no return address. Inside was a document, legal clean. It said her accounts had been closed, her positions vacated, her name released. At the bottom, Daniel Arlage, a single line in handwriting. "Go be someone worth knowing. I finally understand. I never really did." Hope stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up a pen and signed her new name, Hope Cole. That evening, she and Nathan took Emily to the county fair. Laughter lights, corn dogs, and carousel music. Hope held Emily's hand as they rode the Ferris wheel sky, stretching endlessly around them. From the top, Emily gasped, "We're flying!" Hope squeezed her hand. "You are." And you, Hope, smiled, whined in her hair. I'm learning how. When they came down, Nathan was waiting, holding a stuffed bear he'd won at the ring toss. For the girl with the cape, he said, offering it to her. Hope laughed. She's retired. She just wants quiet nights and second chances now. He leaned in. Then maybe she's ready for something more. She looked at him. What kind of more? He didn't say anything, just held out his hand. She took it. And in that moment, not just at the fair, but in her life, Hope realized something. Staying wasn't the hard part anymore. Believing she belonged, that was the miracle. It was a Sunday morning, dressed in gold. Sunlight filtered through the windows, dust dancing in lazy spirals. The kettle whistled softly. Emily sat at the kitchen table, tongue out in concentration as she painted with watercolors. Hope, in one of Nathan's oversized flannel shirts, stood by the sink, humming a tune she didn't remember learning. Nathan entered to sling Emily's hair on his way to pour coffee. What masterpiece are you working on now? Emily held up her page. It was a house. 3 stick figures holding hands beneath. A tree, but this time a 4th one stood just outside the frame. That's Grace, Emily said softly. Hope froze. Nathan looked at her. You remember her? Emily nodded. She visits me sometimes in dreams. Hope crouched beside her. What does she say? Emily paused, dipping her brush again. She says I have 2 moms. One who gave me life, and one who gave me back my smile. Hope's breath caught. Emily turned to her. Do you want to be my mom? Like forever, for real kind. The room went quiet. Hope looked at Nathan, then back at Emily. She reached out gently, tucking a stray hair behind Emily's ear. I don't remember who I was, sweetheart, but I know exactly who I want to be now. And if you'll have me, if you really want me, then yes, I want to be your forever for real mom. Emily didn't answer with words. She just threw her arms around Hope's neck, tight and fierce. From behind them, Nathan's voice was thick. She's been waiting to ask that question for weeks. Hope whispered into Emily's ear, Me too, baby. Me too. That afternoon, Nathan took them to the river, a quiet place. Just trees, water, and peace. They sat on a picnic blanket, Emily feeding ducks nearby, while Nathan and Hope watched in silence. I keep thinking about the version of me that walked into your world, Hope said. Nathan nodded. She was running. She was lost, Hope said. But she was brave enough to collapse where someone kind would find her. He looked at her. And now I think she's becoming someone who can stand for others. He took a breath. Hope, there's something I've been thinking about. Something we haven't talked about because it felt too soon, too fragile. She turned to him, heart the-tutting. I want to adopt you, he said, then quickly corrected. I mean, not legally. I mean, invite you into this life, into this family permanently. Hope blinked. Like marriage, he said gently. But on your terms, at your pace, or not at all if it's too much. She didn't speak. Instead, she leaned in, resting her forehead against his. You're the only man I've ever trusted with my whole story. Even the pages I haven't read yet. His fingers found hers. Then, let's write the next ones together. That evening, they walked through the town square. The autumn festival had begun warm, cider orange lights fiddles playing by the gazebo. Hope stopped in front of a stand selling handmade journals. She picked one up, ran her fingers over the embossed cover. Blank pages. A little intimidating, she murmured. Nathan smiled. Or a little inviting. Hope looked at the price tag and hesitated. Behind her, a voice said, Consider it a gift. She turned. It was Miss Irene from the community center. I heard you're going to be speaking at the next group, she said. Your story is already healing more than you know. Hope swallowed. I'm not sure it's a story yet, just scattered pages. Even scattered pages have meaning, Miss Irene replied. Sometimes the most broken lines carry the deepest truth. Hope clutched the journal to her chest, and in that moment she knew she would fill it, not with who she had been, but with who she was becoming. That night, as stars stitched silver into the sky, Emily crawled into bed beside her. Hope looked at her amused. "Aren't you getting too big for this?" Emily shook her head. "Tonight feels big. I need to be close." Hope wrapped her arms around her. "Then stay, Mom?" Emily asked. Hope's heart swelled at the word. "Yeah. Do you think God gives people second chances?" Hope thought for a long moment. "I think he gives us people," she said finally. "People who remind us how to be brave. People who walk with us through the fog. And sometimes people we're meant to love so hard we forget we were ever broken." Emily snuggled closer. "Then I think we're someone's second chance." Hope kissed the crown of her head. "No, baby. We're someone's miracle." Down the hall, Nathan stood watching the two of them, his heart full, his purpose clear. And as he turned off the hallway light, he whispered to the darkness, "She doesn't need to be saved anymore." Then, smiling to himself, she chose to stay, and that to him was the bravest thing anyone could ever do. It started with a scent. Hope was folding laundry when she caught a hint of perfume floral expensive haunting. She froze mid-motion, a sock clutched in her hand. Lavender and white tea. Her breath hitched. She'd worn that perfume once. No, Malene had. But instead of panic, there was only stillness, a quiet knowing, like the past had gently knocked, asking permission to be remembered. She sat down slowly, eyes unfocused. A memory bloomed sharp and vivid. A glass-walled office, Manhattan skyline, rain streaking the windows. She was barefoot, standing in the middle of a boardroom in silence. Mascara smudged, hands trembling, a voice behind her. "You don't cry in this building, Malene. That's not who you are." She remembered turning slowly, facing Daniel's cold gaze and replying with a voice that was barely hers then. "Maybe I'm not supposed to be here." The memory dissolved. Hope looked up at the ceiling, blinking fast. "I chose to leave," she whispered. "Even before the accident, I wanted out." Later that evening, she found Nathan in the garage fixing the mailbox flag Emily had knocked off with her bike. "Do you remember anything?" he asked, not looking up. "I do," she said softly. He set the tool down and turned. "I remembered how it felt to stand in a room full of power and feel utterly invisible, like everything I built meant nothing if I wasn't perfect every second." He wiped his hands on a rag, and now Hope leaned against the workbench. "Now I stand, in a kitchen with burnt toast and a child who thinks I'm magic, and I've never felt more seen." Nathan smiled gently. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what you actually needed." She nodded. "And sometimes it takes finding one good man and a stubborn little girl to remind you that you're worth loving, even in pajamas." He laughed, especially in pajamas. The next day, Hope returned to the community center, not to attend, to speak. The room was full, mostly women, a few men. Miss Irene sat in the back with a proud smile. Hope stood in front of them, her hands shaking just enough to show she cared. "I used to think survival meant forgetting," she began. "But I've learned it's the opposite. Survival is remembering without letting the pain define you." She paused. "I don't know everything about who I was, but I know who I am becoming." And she's someone who listens better, feels deeper, and loves harder than the woman I used to be. Someone in the front row whispered, "Amen." Hope smiled. "And if any of you are standing in the ruins of your old life, wondering if anything beautiful can grow there, I'm here to tell you it can. It won't be the same garden, but it will be yours, and it will be worth it." Applause filled the room, some with hands, some with tears. That night, after Emily was asleep, Hope sat on the porch swing beside Nathan. The stars were unusually bright. "I think I'm ready," she said. He looked at her. "For what?" "To sign the adoption papers," she whispered. "Not because I want to erase Grace, but because Emily deserves the security of knowing I'm not going anywhere." Nathan nodded slowly. "Grace would have loved you, not just because you love Emily, but because you stayed when it was hard." Hope rested her head on his shoulder. "I stayed because you made me believe staying was safe." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Hope stiffened. "Nathan." He opened it. Inside a delicate silver ring. Simple, elegant, timeless. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight," he said. "But when you're ready, and only if your answer is yes, this is yours." She didn't cry. She smiled. "Leave it on the table," she whispered. "I have a feeling I'll need it soon." The following week, they drove into the city for the court hearing. Emily wore her favorite sunflower dress. Nathan wore a suit, only the third time Hope had seen him in one, and Hope wore no perfume at all. She didn't need a mask anymore. In the waiting area outside the courtroom, Emily climbed into Hope's lap. "What if the judge says no?" she asked, nervous. Hope cupped her cheek. "Sweetheart, judges don't break families. They just sign the papers to prove they already exist." Emily smiled. Inside the courtroom was plain, neutral walls, quiet echoes. The judge, a kind-faced woman with silver-streaked hair, read the file carefully. "You're not the biological mother," she said gently, "but this child clearly sees you as hers." Hope nodded. "I wasn't there when she was born, but I was there the day she lost her first tooth. I've been there for every nightmare, every lunchbox note, every scraped knee." Her voice trembled. "And I'll be there when she falls in love and when she gets her first job and when life scares her the way it once scared me." Emily took Hope's hand. "She's my mom. She just took a different road to get to me." The judge smiled. "I think that road led exactly where it was supposed to." She signed the papers. Hope Cole officially became Emily Cole's mother. But in truth, she always had been. Outside the courthouse, Nathan kissed her forehead and whispered, "We're not broken people. We're just people who know the cost of healing." Hope looked at Emily spinning on the marble floor like a sunflower chasing light. "And that makes us rich in all the right ways," she said. And for the first time in years, Hope didn't feel like a woman missing pieces. She felt like a woman who'd finally come home to herself. The first snow fell gently that morning. Hope stood by the window, watching as flakes gathered on the porch rail like shy promises. Behind her, the living room was warm with the scent of cinnamon rolls and wood smoke. Emily was humming a Christmas song, slightly off-key, decorating a crooked paper tree she'd made at school. Nathan came up behind Hope, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You okay?" She nodded, leaning into his chest. "It's strange. I always thought winter meant endings, but now it feels like a beginning." He kissed her hair. "That's what healing feels like. Cold truth followed by warm starts." There was a knock at the door. Nathan went to open it, but Hope beat him to it. Standing outside, bundled in an elegant gray coat, was Daniel Arledge, her former fiancé. The man who'd watched her unravel and said nothing. His presence hit her like a chord she hadn't heard in years, familiar, tense, unfinished. "May I?" he asked, glancing toward the living room. Hope stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Snow crunched beneath her slippers. Daniel looked older, less sharp around the edges, and for the first time not in control. "I read the article," he said, "about the amnesiac woman who stayed and became a mother. I knew it was you." Hope didn't flinch. "Then why come now?" He looked away. "Because I finally realized something. You were always begging me to see you. not just as a CEO, but as a person. And I didn't know how. There was silence. Then Hope spoke, her voice clear and firm. You didn't break me, Daniel, but you didn't fight for me either. His jaw tensed. I didn't know how to fight for something I couldn't control. That's the difference between us, she said. You saw my breakdown as a liability. Nathan saw it as proof I was human. Daniel's gaze softened. You love him with everything I am. He nodded slowly. I didn't come to win you back. I came to give you this. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a photo. Hope, or rather Malene, taken months before the accident. She was standing alone at a gala, eyes tired behind makeup, smiled tight. On the back, in Daniel's handwriting, I'm sorry I never asked why you were sad that night. You deserved better. Hope stared at the photo, then looked up. Why give this? To me now? Daniel took a deep breath. Because I needed you to know I see it now. And I hope maybe someday you'll forgive me. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked past him to where Emily was dancing inside and Nathan was taping paper, snowflakes to the walls. Then she looked back at Daniel. I already have, she said. Not because he earned it, but because she deserved to be free. That evening, they lit the fireplace. Hope curled up on the couch, Emily nestled beside her, Nathan reading aloud from a book. Emily had chosen something about a girl who saved a town with kindness. Halfway through the chapter, Emily sat up. Mom? Hope looked down. Yes, sweetheart. Can we give away my old clothes and toys to kids who don't have families? Hope blinked, surprised. Nathan smiled. Where'd that idea come from? Emily shrugged. I was thinking since I got a new mommy, maybe someone else needs a new something too. Hope felt her throat tighten. That's a beautiful idea. Emily grinned. Then let's do it before Christmas. And just like that, a new tradition was born. Over the next few days, Hope and Nathan helped Emily sort through clothes, toys, even her favorite stuffed bunny Binky, which she decided to donate because he's already had 2 Christmases with me. They took boxes to the women's shelter and the children's home. And everywhere they went, Hope saw faces that reminded her of herself, not the powerful executive, but the woman who once sat in a hospital bed with no name, no memory, and no one. At the last stop, a little girl, maybe 5, held up a donated jacket and whispered, Is this mine now? Hope knelt down and smiled. It is, and it looks perfect on you. The child threw her arms around Hope's neck and held tight. Hope didn't cry, but she did feel something shift, like a wound that had finally closed without a scar. That night, Hope sat alone at the kitchen table, the silver ring Nathan had given her resting in her palm. Nathan entered quietly. You're thinking, he said. I'm remembering, she corrected. He walked over and gently took the ring from her hand. You don't have to decide now. She looked at him. I already have. He stilled. I just wanted to remember everything first, not to carry the pain, but to honor it. She took the ring back and slipped it onto her finger. I choose this life, this family, you. Nathan's voice broke. Then I promised to spend every day proving you chose right. They embraced no grand proposal, no fireworks, just 2 people choosing each other after walking through the storm. Later in bed, Hope whispered to the quiet, Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about releasing the weight we were never meant to carry. And as the snow fell soft against the roof, Hope Cole, once Malene Hart, finally fully became who she was always meant to be. Not a title, not a memory, but a woman rebuilt by love and brave enough to give it back. Spring arrived, not with a roar, but a hush soft rain on the roof. Birds tentatively testing their songs and wildflowers blooming in stubborn patches along. the edge of the coal yard. Inside, Hope stood before the mirror, brushing Emily's hair into gentle curls. The little girl beamed at her reflection. "Do I look like a flower girl?" Hope smiled. "You look like the heart of this whole day." Emily turned eyes wide. "Do you think Mom Grace would be happy?" Hope crouched, brushing a strand from Emily's face. "I know she would. She gave you your first love. You gave me mine." Emily hugged her tight. "Then maybe today is her wedding too." Hope held her longer than usual, not out of grief, but gratitude. Outside, chairs were set in neat rows beneath an old oak tree that Nathan and Emily had once decorated with ribbons, just because it looked like it wanted to wear something pretty. No grand venue, no orchestra, just friends, neighbors, and a hand-painted wooden sign that read, "Today we begin again." Nathan stood at the front in a navy suit that Hope swore made him look like every honest man in every great love story ever told. When Hope appeared, led by Emily, the crowd rose. But Nathan, he didn't move, didn't blink. His eyes drank her in like he was memorizing not just her face, but every storm they'd survived to stand here. As she reached him, he whispered, "You make broken look beautiful." Hope whispered back, "You made healing feel like coming home." They wrote their own vows. Nathan went first. "I never wanted to fall in love again. That's the truth. I thought I'd already lived my love story. But then you walked into our lives not knowing who you were, yet still becoming exactly who we needed. You turned our house into a home, our silence into music, and our pain into purpose. You didn't just love me, you saw me, and I vowed to keep earning that look in your eyes every day we get." Hope's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "I once had a name, a title, and a tower made of glass. Then I lost it all and somehow found myself. I didn't know who I was, Nathan, but you never asked me to be anything but here, with you, with her. And now I choose this name, Hope Cole. Not because it's the one fate gave me, but because it's the one I earned through love, through staying, through becoming. I vow to never stop choosing you." Emily leaned over and whispered to the officiant, "Can I say something to you?" The officiant, smiling, nodded. Emily marched to the front, cleared, her throat like a professional speaker, and said, "I just want everyone to know that my mom and dad are superheroes. Not the flying kind, but the fixing kind. They fixed me, they fixed each other, and now we're like a big, squishy, glued-together heart, and I think that's better than perfect." The crowd laughed and cried. After the ceremony, there was music and dancing. Miss Irene brought lemon bars. The local mechanic played acoustic guitar. Neighbors clapped along as Emily twirled in circles, making her dress billow like a storybook princess. Hope and Nathan swayed beneath the tree, her head on his shoulder. "You know," he murmured for a woman who didn't know her past, "you built a pretty incredible future." Hope smiled. "That's the thing about lost stories. They don't stay lost forever. They just need a new beginning." Later that night, as stars blinked into view, the three of them lay on a blanket in the grass. Emily pointed upward. "Do you think God connects the stars on purpose?" Hope looked up. "Maybe he lets us do the connecting," Nathan added. "And maybe the lines we draw say more about us than the stars themselves." Emily yawned, rolling over. "Then I'm drawing hearts between all of them." Hope kissed her daughter's forehead. "That sounds perfect." They stayed like that, wrapped in quiet in each other, in the safety of something whole. In the weeks that followed, Hope returned to writing, not for a company, not for a boardroom, for herself, for the women at the center, for anyone who needed a map out of the dark. Her first published piece was titled The Forgotten Vow. How losing myself helped me love deeper. It went viral. But she didn't care about the clicks. only the emails that poured in, from women who said, "That was me," from men who wrote, "Now I understand her pain," from children who whispered, "I showed this to my mom." Hope replied to every message. Because when your story saves you, you don't keep it to yourself. One morning, Emily ran in from school clutching a drawing. "This is us," she said proudly. It was a stick figure family. Nathan with a mop, Hope with a big heart, and Emily in between them with a crown. Underneath it was one sentence. "We're not perfect, but we are real, and we are enough." Hope framed it, hung it in the hallway. Because in a house built on second chances, truth was the most beautiful decoration of all. And so the woman who forgot everything became unforgettable to the ones who mattered most. If this story touched your heart even just a little, I invite you to take a deep breath and remember. No matter how broken a beginning may be, love can still write a beautiful ending. Now I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? And what part of the story moved you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories inspire me just as much as these characters. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another soul-stirring story. There are many more journeys of love, healing, and redemption coming your way. From my heart to yours, thank you for watching. Stay kind, stay hopeful, and remember sometimes the most unforgettable stories begin with being